Hey guys, it's Sam here from HowToEverQ, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can build your own email application in Python. So how you can send emails from Python. And it's an absolutely lovely project and I'm sure you're going to really enjoy it. Be sure to try this out. I'll put the link in the description to my GitHub page with all the source code you need to do this project. And to be honest, you can type most of it at home. It's fairly simple. So let's get started. First of all, we're just going to change a few things. I'm going to actually make my IDE look a bit better with highlighting. Not a lot of people know this, but you can actually change how it looks, and there you go, it looks a bit nicer. And now I'm going to create a new file, and we're just going to save it. And the very important thing you don't do is you do not save it as email.py. If you save it as email, the Python file as email, it will override the SMTP module on this, and it won't work, so you won't be able to send emails. So make sure whatever you do, you don't actually save it as email, tempting as it may be. Okay, so let me just save this. I'm going to call it send underscore email. Okay, so how are we going to start? Well, it's all based around this module called SMTP lib. And once we've set up SMTP lib, we just need to basically initialize a connection. So we'll just do server, so the SMTP server, SMTP lib .smtp, and make sure you spell this all right. It's easy to get the M and the T the other way around. And I'm going to set this up for Gmail. So Gmail's SMTP server. If you're interested, you probably have a Gmail account. You can follow along. This is their port number and their server. So let's get started, and we're just going to start TLS, and that basically initializes a secure connection. So if you want a secure connection when sending these emails, be sure to do that. And you know, I've implemented this across my many projects, and it's very useful. So you can do server.login, and this logs into your email, in this case Gmail. I set up a test account so I wouldn't have to use my actual email, but at gmail.com, and this is basically a rubbish account. You can see I've hidden my password, but you enter in your email user and then your password in the field where I've blanked it out here as a string with these quotation marks. If you're not 100% sure, go to the GitHub page, download it, just copy it across, very easy, and then just play around with it. That's probably the best way to learn. Okay, now we're going to define our message. So we just do message, and we're just going to write hi there, sending this email from Python, exclamation mark. That's quite nice. And we'll do server.send mail. This will send an email, and you enter in your address. You may think that you can just add any address here and spoof emails, but it's going to get rejected by nearly every spam filter ever, so I wouldn't recommend it. And now you just enter in the email you want to send it to. So I'm going to send it to myself again because it just makes more sense. And then we have the message. So message goes here. And once we finish sending the message, we just want to quit, which basically cleans up the connection. Now we'd run this code right now, or we could clean it up. So we could define email underscore user equals, and this is much neater code to do it this way, defining variables initially and then using them afterwards, because then we're not constantly using raw strings, and it's much easier to configure later. So if I want to change the email, I don't have to go down and change all of them. I just change the variable, which is the whole point of variables really. And I could say email underscore, I'm going to call it email underscore send, and in this case that's just going to be equal to this, so the same thing. And I'll just copy this across nicely also. So email underscore send. Now let's test our first email. So we're just going to save it. Be sure to just quickly read through, make sure you got it all right, and then just hit F5. Now we've run it, you may see this error, and this error is basically Gmail rejecting it. Go to the email you set up on. So here I set up on test 17929 whatever, and it will say like secure account, block of attempt. Just allow access to less secure apps, and then just tick it on. And now when we run it, we should receive an email from ourselves. So it'll say that it's been turned on, and now we're going to run it, and it should work. So let's see it. Okay, it's saying that it has finished, as you can see there. So now if we just refresh the page, we should see that we have received an email, and it says, "Hi, sending this email from Python." And you can see email address, and it sent it to us. Very nice, very cool. Okay, well that's a very basic email, and it works very nicely, and I guess you can understand what you can do, but it's only message. And what happens if we want to add a subject, or we want to add attachments, or we want to make it more complicated? So if you want to make it more complicated, then feel free to stick around, and it's not going to be too much harder. Anybody can do this, but it's going to be slightly more difficult. But you can just go onto my GitHub page and copy it. So you can see here, document and image. I am going to be showing you how to send attachments that way anyway. So if we want to actually include the subject and make it a bit more complex email, then we're going to have to use something called the email module, and we're going to use something called mime and multiparts. So we go from email.mime.text import mime text, like that, and from email.mime dot, I guess, multipart, import mime multipart, like that. And now what we need to do is we actually need to now we need to define the message in a different way. Before we were just defining the message like this, but now the message is actually an object, not just a normal string. So this was actually, we're going to take the string and we're going to define it as the body, and we're going to move this above server, so we don't need connection with the server for the full time, essentially. And we're just going to do message equals mime multi part, like that, see, and that will define a new multipart object. And we're basically just going to add a from address, and we've already defined these above, so it's fairly simple to just configure these. Email underscore user, and then message to email underscore send, and which in my case is just my email, but you know, you can configure this how you guys would like to do it. And MSG, or message as it would stand for, subject. Now we're going to define the subject. And I think, you know, it'd be nice to have a variable up here called subject, so it's nice and out of the way. And I'm just going to call it Python with an exclamation mark, and we'll just call it subject. So we define that, and we have the body here. So now let's attach the body to the message, because we actually need to attach this, or attach the body to the overall message, since it's an object. It's not just a string as we had before. So msg.attach should attach it to the object, and we're going to use mime text for this. So it will just create a mime text object, and that will allow us to copy it across into the object. And since our email is plain, we're just, obviously this body is a plain email. It's just plain text. It's not HTML or XML or that sort of thing. So we've attached it, and now we've attached that, it should basically work, apart from one small detail. For the final part, we need to actually convert this message into basically a plain text string, from the object into a plain text string. So we're just going to do msg as underscore string, and now we should have a nice plain text message we can send. So we'll change this to text, and now it's a bit more complicated, and it's going to work nicer. So now let's just F5 and run and see if it sends an email to ourselves. So let's see. So now let's go back and see if it sent us, and here you go, Python, and you can see it's got the same body, but now has the subject. Much nicer. And you can even say it says mailed by gmail.com. And it will even come up as important because it's been mailed through Gmail's system, not through some IMAP system. So this is the good way of doing it. Okay, so we've done a basic level and we've done a bit more complicated. Now let's make it slightly more complicated again. We're going to actually add attachments. We're going to make it so we can add attachments and encode them and send it via this email. So this is, for example, we might want to send like PDF files or a text document, or even, for example, let's say you have a script running on a server somewhere and you want it to report back to you any errors. This could send a log file across. So, you know, quite a nice idea, and you have the ability to schedule these to just do that, and through Python, you know, very nice idea. Okay, so now let's set this up for adding attachments. So the first thing is we can just leave this as it is mostly. We're actually just going to add a file name. So what is our file going to be called? And in our case, we're actually going to be sending this document.txt here, and we're just going to do document.txt is our file name. And attachment is basically going to read the file. So it's basically going to open. We're basically going to open the file name, and we're going to read it with read bytes like this. So it's going to read it. Essentially, it's going to read it to I believe we're going to have to encode it to base 64 to do this. So let's just set up the parts. So the first part of the attachment is going to be our MIME base, which you have not imported yet. So we do from email MIME, and we're going to do MIME base, I suppose. I guess we'll do MIME base, and then we'll do import MIME base. So there we go, we have the MIME base there, and this is for encoding in basically base 64, I believe, or yeah, that sort of thing. And I'm going to set this up as an application with a standard OCTET stream. Now you guys don't actually need to understand this, but it's essentially, putting it in more simple terms, allowing you to upload an attachment. It's essentially opening a stream to upload the attachment, and then sending it, and then closing the stream. And we're going to have to add some headers and stuff as well. So we're going to add part.set_payload, and the payload is part of the part essentially, and the payload in this case is actually our attachment. So we're going to say attachment, and we're going to do .read, and this is going to read the attachment and set it as the payload. And as I did say, this is more complicated. And now we're going to encode the attachment in base 64, which, if you're not familiar with bases, maybe Google it, or if you're not too worried, yeah, there's lots of good videos online about bases. Yeah, just Google it and you'll be able to understand it fairly straightforward. So now we've encoded it in base 64, which is a standard encoding for an email. We're going to add a header. Now the header is going to be to do with what we're actually sending, and in this we're actually sending some content, and we're just going to put content disposition essentially, and our attachment, we'll send it like this: attachment, file name, and we can easily just insert in here, say file name, and we're adding the header to say what the file name is equal to, so we'll understand what to put. So file name is equal to space, and now we can just add the file name in here. File name, nice and simple. Okay, now we've added that file name in, and we've got the content working. We've added the headers to the parts. we're going to attach this part to our overall message. So we're just going to do msg dot attach, and we're just going to attach this as a part. Now, and we're still going to use this to convert it as a string, because it's all going to be encoded in base 64. So the base 64 encoding, so this document is going to be turned into base 64. If it was an image, it would do the same thing. So, fairly complicated. Basically, we have the user credentials here. We have a MIME part, which is part of the email, which builds up the email, and we can set the from and to addresses and the subject there. That's fairly simple. And then we can attach it as a MIME text part, which is part of the email. Then we have the file name of the document we want to attach. We open the attachment, which is opening the file, and then we set up a part for the email as a MIME base, and that basically means we're going to be uploading a file in base 64. So we set the payload of the attachment, and we're basically reading the attachment at this point, so we're reading the contents of this attachment, and then we add the headers of the file so that the email knows this is called document.txt, for example, and then we attach that as a part to the email, and then the text is set as a message as a string. So all that base 64 is all a string. If you don't understand base 64, best just to Google it. There's lots of good videos. And then we just start the connection with a Gmail server, and we start the connect. And here you'll be able to see that we actually start secure connection there. We log in, and then we send the email with the data, and then once we've finished, we exit the server. Nice and simple. I'm going to put this on GitHub so you guys can use it as much as you want and play around with it. The best way of learning in most cases with programming is just to download Python, copy this code, and just have fun with it. You can make a program which sends emails to your friends. I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it? You can make a program which you know, it could send emails at certain times, or you can make it so it sends a backup of a document to you. I mean, there's loads of different ways you could use this, and trust me, there's loads of different ways I've seen to use this, and I have used this. And of course, it's very important we import our encoder, because we haven't actually imported our encoder yet. So we're just going to do from emails import encoders. Oops, encoders. So we're going to import that, and now we just click F5, and you can see it's processing. It's uploaded the attachment, and it's successfully sent the email. So if it has successfully sent, we should receive a document called document.txt, and it should have the subject Python, and it should say hi there, sending this email from Python. So now let's go check. So you can see, hi there, sending this email from Python. We've got our document. If we download that document, it comes up here, we open it, and you can see this document contains important information. You know, we've sent an email with an attachment. Now let's just put that one more step further, and let's send an image. And I've got an image, I believe, called image.jpg, and I'm going to show you that it's just as simple. It may take slightly longer to upload, but you can indeed send an image. Image.jpg, and now file to send, and we should see it is now done, and you'll see it should pop up. Normally it pops up, so it's finished. And if we just click refresh, here it is, and it sent this image through Python. Pretty cool, huh? So guys, I'm so glad you watched this video. I hope this really helped you learn some new cool things about Python, and how Python actually isn't that hard. And although you can do complex things in Python, there are also simpler ways to do things. Like you can easily send a normal text email without any hassle at all. So thanks for watching. This is episode 3 of the series of how to program in Python for beginners. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to check out my GitHub page. Be sure to subscribe so you can get more videos, and click the notification bell to receive notifications. If this video was helpful, be sure to like it, leave a comment with any queries down below, and thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.